Welcome to Breakthrough Success. I'm your host, Mark Gabberty, the content marketing expert, bringing you 5 new episodes every week where I and top-level guests teach you how to take your business to the next level and achieve your breakthrough. Hello, Breakthrough Success listeners. I just wanted you all to know before the episode actually starts, I've been working a little bit behind the scenes to give you something really special. So a while ago, I wrote my book, Content Marketing Secrets, which helps people create, promote, and optimize their content for growth and revenue. And I just put the finishing touches together to offer that for free to anyone who is interested. So if you want your free copy of Content Marketing Secrets, all you have to do is head over to markgabberty.com/book. Now, let's jump right into the episode. Business is all about putting in the effort, facing challenges, and being able to bounce back when things get tough so you can rise even higher on the way to massive profits. And we have a great guest for you today who has had that experience with bouncing back from actually, he started his first business at 22, so he started very young, worked around the clock, but a year later, he found himself in debt from that business and he walked away from it. So for many people, that would be the end, but however, today's guest did make that bounce back. He would go on to build and sell several multi-million-dollar technology companies, winning both the Inc. 500 and Best Place to Work awards. He has written several books, including the New York Times bestseller, How to Increase Performance and Profits Through Full Engagement, Employee Engagement 2.0, and 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management. The Forbes Leadership columnist is going to take some time to share his insights with us. And without any further ado, today's guest for episode 196 of the Breakthrough Success Podcast is none other than Kevin Kruse. Kevin, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Mark, the pleasure's all mine. As I mentioned before we went live here, I'm just a big fan of yours, all that you've accomplished already, all that you've got going on. It's just nice to be doing this with you.
Kevin, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show. I did read your book, 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management, and knew I had to have you on the show. So the feeling is quite mutual, and I really do want to get into how you bounce back and are able to make profit because it didn't look so good in the beginning. There's more details in his book, but I'm wondering if you could give us some backstory and share with us why you started that first business at 22.
Yeah, I remember the day I decided to become an entrepreneur, and it was, I was 10 years old, and my father had always dreamed of being an entrepreneur, and he ended up buying this company that actually made pool tables. We were out in Southern California at the time, and I knew things were bad because my father, started getting kind of moody and stuff, but I didn't realize how bad it was. And then it's like a hot summer day, Southern California day, tossing a football on the front lawn with my friend Roy, and a Corvette pulls up to the curb. And we weren't dirt poor, but there were no Corvettes in our neighborhoods. We thought the guy was probably lost. Maybe he was going to ask us directions. And this big guy gets out of the car, dark suit, wearing mirrored sunglasses like cops like to wear. And I remember he only had one arm, like his sleeve was pinned up high. And he just kind of like marched right up onto the lawn. And he said to me, "You live here?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Your father home?" I said, "No." And then he leans down like right in my face. And I'm like staring at myself in his glasses. He's like, "Are you sure he's not home?" I said, "Yeah, I'm sure." And he like juts his business card out and says, "Tell your father he's got to call me. He has to call me." And then he drives away. And, being young, like this guy was like a James Bond villain or something. Like he just scared the heck out of me. And that night, my dad comes home after dinner. He sits at the kitchen table. He's just staring at a cup of coffee. I tell him about this scary one-armed man, give him the card. My dad looks at the card, tosses it on the table, doesn't say anything. So I said, "You going to call him?" He says, "Nope." I said, "Well, what does he want?" He says, "He wants money." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? Like, shouldn't you call him back?" And he said, there's no point. There's nothing left for them to take. And what I didn't know until that night is my dad actually went out of business. And this guy was like a bill collector, like trying to, I guess my dad owed people money because of the business. And in fact, my dad had mortgaged or leveraged our house to buy the company. So we lost our house. We had to move out, shortly thereafter. But that night of of the one-armed man, I had this little red diary, this little red journal. And, I keep it on my desk even today. And that night I wrote down, I said, I don't care what it takes, but when I grow up, I'm going to have a lot of money. And it sounds funny to, hear it as like this Wall Street greed is good. But it was just this 10-year-old boy saying, like, I'm not going to have this one-armed man come and take my house away from me again. And that was the day I knew, if you want to accumulate wealth, you need to own something. You need to be an entrepreneur. And and immediately it changed my life. I mean, I became the first kid in my family to go to college. And then even though I was dead broke, Mark, I mean, the day I graduated from college was the day I started my first company. And I didn't have enough money for both like an apartment and an office. And it wasn't cool to work from home back then. This is 30 years ago almost. So I just got a little one-room office and I just slept under my desk for the whole first year.
And like hearing that story, like it's when you have that some kind of experience like that, and you're like, I don't want that to happen to me. I mean, that's one of the things that can fuel us to achieve bigger goals and set higher standards for ourselves. And like hearing the first part of the story, I mean, it does sound similar in the sense where you start your first business at 22, but then you're done with that business and you find yourself in debt. Now, obviously, that's not the end story. The end story is this massive success, best-selling books, a lot of companies he's been involved in. But what was the difference between your first business, the one you started at 22, and things didn't necessarily go well with that one, and the eventual multi-million-dollar companies you would build and sell some of them later on?
Yeah, well, I mean, that first one definitely like crashed and burned and left me in debt, after 1 year. And then I did a second one that wasn't as bad, but I shut it down and walked away from it after a year. It was really my third attempt that I had some success, and then they got, bigger after that. And I think that, I mean, there's a lot of factors when you start a company, when you're 21, 22, there's a lot going against you, the things that you don't know, the fact that you really don't have much of a Rolodex, you don't have many contacts or a very big social network. You also have a lot of advantages, including not having to worry about, a mortgage or spending time with the spouse and kids or whatever. But I think among the many reasons why the first couple of businesses didn't work out, first of all, it was just like a lack of leadership. I mean, I didn't realize, I was so cocky. I just thought I could figure it out myself. I didn't need a board of directors. I didn't need mentors. I didn't need to go off and study this or get some training or anything else. I thought I could hire cheap because, I was the guy. And it was only later that I realized that, if you really want to change the world, if you really want to build something of substance, it takes a team, it takes a bigger team. And the only way you're going to attract great people and keep them is if you've got some confidence to leave them alone and to be a good leader. The second thing is, again, I thought it was all about the hustle. So I was working in those days, just crazy number of hours in a week. I worked every day of the year, that first year, and got very little sleep, underneath my desk. There was no time for working out. There was no time for parties or friends or things like that. It was just a grind. And I realized at a certain point, you've got diminishing returns. Like, you work an 8-hour day, that 9th hour, you're not going to be as fresh as you were in hour number 1. And if you're working a 20-hour day, hour number 20, you ain't getting a whole lot done if you're honest with yourself. So, I got a little wiser about how to invest my time, how to be productive, how not to do everything myself. So it's a combination of this leadership and understanding time and productivity that started to click with the third company.
And I really like how you mentioned the team and mentors. I mean, all the successful entrepreneurs, they tend to have big teams behind them. And any successful entrepreneur who doesn't have a team behind them, like, first, that's very rare. Second off, they have a team behind them, they're just going to be so much more successful. So I do second that insight. So anyone who wants to be more successful, it could just come down to hiring the right coach or having that bigger team behind you. But another part of it is the way that we're managing our time. And Kevin mentioned this. He was talking about how like that 9th hour, we're not as energetic as we are during that first hour. And obviously, if you're on hour 20, like, you might be sleeping on that 20th hour. I mean, like, if you could work 20 hours straight, like, that would be like insane. And I don't necessarily mean that in a good way. Like, I would like look to fix the schedule. But going back to the time side of things, I'm wondering if you could share with us some of the key actions that we can take to get better at time management.
Yeah, and you mentioned the book. When I sold my last company about 10 years ago, I took a little bit of a break, mainly to raise my kids and to dive into some passion projects. And when I realized, the importance of time and productivity, that kind of the awakening I had in my life, I wanted to research it more. So it wasn't just my opinions. And so, I reached out and interviewed, over 200 self-made millionaires and billionaires and straight A students and Olympic athletes. And they're not all doing the same 15 things, the same 15 secrets. Any one can really be powerful. But, a couple that stand out. I mean, one easy one is almost everybody I spoke to, they said, look, I am crystal clear on every day. Like, I write down what my most important task is, my MIT. And there's another good book out there called The One Thing, which hits on this point. And your most important task, it's not like the fire you got to put out for that day. It's not there's a lot of people think it's if you've got to eat a frog, eat the frog first. It's not doing the thing you don't want to do. It's realizing what is the project or the accomplishment or the goal that will like double the size of my business or get me a promotion at work or take my personal relationships to the next level. And what can I do to advance towards that goal today, even if it's only 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 1 hour? If I'm, in my own business right now, if I want to double the size of my business in a year, I need to back that out. And I might think like, okay, well, I need to hire twice, double the size of my sales force. And if I want to do that, maybe I need a new VP of sales. Okay, if I need to do that, I need to find a recruiter to get one for me. And I need to, ask my friends if they know any good recruiters. Like, I just figure out what all those steps are. And instead of walking in at work in the morning and diving into my email inbox and checking voicemails and responding to texts and signing expense reports, before I even open the email, I know that the first hour of my day is going to be working on my MIT, and that'll change day to day, week to week. But, one day I might be screening resumes to find that VP of sales. Next week, maybe I'm doing phone interviews with VP of sales. Then I've got the short list and I'm doing breakfast meetings with them, whatever it is. But I know what the big goal is, the big mission for my goals, and I'm chipping away at it. So that's something I heard a lot about. And then, Mark, if I do one more, the radical one that half the people think I'm crazy, the other half email me and say it's changed their life. Conventional wisdom, from Getting Things Done, David Allen and others, it's like the calendar is for phone calls and meetings, and then we put things on our to-do list and we, sort the to-do list and prioritize it and all that. Nobody I spoke to was using a to-do list. They only use a calendar. So it sounds crazy, but if you want to practice extreme productivity, throw out your to-do list and just work from your calendar. If you're 41% of the things on to-do lists, we never do. So if you really want to do it, pick a day, pick a time, estimate the duration, put it on your calendar. And when that day comes, you print your calendar out, and that day calendar is your to-do list. That's just a radical kind of new approach to managing your life.
And I also use that approach, the calendar approach, as you mentioned. So just to give people an idea of what I do, because like one of the themes in your book is people do different things, but you could pick from the best and see what works. So what I do is I start with the to-do lists for the following day, but then I put everything on the calendar. So it's like, I know that at this time I'm doing that. So in the end, I throw out that to-do list and I just have the calendar in focus. So that's just, I mean, it's a really great way to be productive. And I'm really happy we talked about it during this episode. But you also mentioned MIT's most important tasks. And at some moments, the MIT is very difficult. And you look at some easier things you could do, like send emails to people, write the outline for a blog post or a video. So how do you have that? How are you able to focus on the MIT for that first hour of the day without being tempted by some of the things that may be easier?
Yeah, and it is tough. It's sort of like a discipline or a muscle that gets stronger with use. And for a lot of people starting out, maybe, again, if you're already working from that calendar for the day, as you described, maybe it's just every morning from 8 to 8:15, so 15 minutes, it's just blocked out every day MIT. And then, you jot in for that day what that task is. But for myself also, what's been helpful is, another one of the secrets that kind of surprised me is a lot of these people talked about what they did when they got out of bed in the morning, like that first 30 minutes to an hour really shaped the rest of the day. And I started a more rigorous morning practice, and it starts with reminding me. I say to myself my personal mission. In life, I then do 3 things I'm grateful for, so a little gratitude practice, and then I go through my. I don't really call them goals. It's more like intention areas or values, and I like to keep things simple. So some people have 10 areas of life they're working on. For me, it's health, wealth, and relationships, or health, wealth, and love. And I will just every morning think about relationships, they're important to me, and I'm going to think about my kids right now. And you know what? The NBA playoffs just started. I got to remember to talk to my son, about that crazy game last night. And my daughter,
game 1 of the NBA Finals for anyone.
Yeah, right. June 1st, the day we're recording this. And I'll just go through, what's going on in each of my kids' life and how can I relate to it a little bit. Or, health. Okay, I'm going to have a super busy day and I'm going to be realistic. I might not hit the gym today, but even though I'm slacking on that, then I'm going to think about, all right, but you're going to eat clean. You got to remember to eat clean, especially on a day you're not going to the gym. So I'm rehearsing all of this every morning, and it sounds like a lot. It only takes like less than 5 minutes. And then I'm ending with, all right, what is my most important task? What is the one thing I can do in just a little bit of time when I get out of the shower, first thing in the day? What's the one thing I can do to advance the business the most? So, I mean, it's a tough discipline, but if you start with a small time chunk, calendar it, and get in that habit of just kind of reviewing your values, reviewing your priorities, and thinking about that MIT before you go and sit at your desk, I think it increases the odds you'll keep the phone down or in airplane mode until you're done.
And I really like this disciplined focus where you're doing a lot of reflecting. And again, it's not like an hour of reflecting. It's just like 5 minutes before you get really deep into the work that you're going to do. And I believe that we do have to reflect and do more thinking about where we are, where we want to go. And that'll help us align our work better with the goals that we seek. But I know that you've helped a lot of people through your books and through your companies as well. And with that in mind, I'm wondering, what do you believe holds most people back from achieving a high level of performance and profit?
Well, I think almost everything we do, comes from, fear or love, from fear or desire. And unfortunately, I think fear is the more dominant thing for all of us. And so people who don't reach a high level, that fear can manifest in a lot of ways. It can be a fear of failure. What happens if this doesn't work out? Will I look like a fool? Will everybody make fun of me? Will I lose all my money? Will I not be able to get a job again? There's those kinds of fears. But oddly, there's also fear of success. And I I never had that fear. But a lot of people I know, after they really do some self-work, they will admit that part of their, say, procrastination is like, well, what if I really do get into grad school and, get that advanced degree? My husband, who never went to college, is that going to change our relationship? Is he going to be upset or mad or think differently of me? If I go and make $1 million and, my parents are not doing that well, are they going to see me as like a class traitor or whatever? And I never had anything quite that dramatic, but things do change when people find out, that you've got a certain amount of money in the bank. And so I think a lot of people, it's either fear of failure or fear of success that holds them back.
And that fear is definitely something that comes up again and again. And you mentioned something interesting where it's something like the amount of money left in your bank account where then action really gets started. But one of the things you can do is create a mock situation where you feel like you have to act fast. So one of the things I do is I'll keep a good amount of money in the bank, and most of the business spending, that money is in my PayPal account. So when I see the PayPal account dropping really low, even though the overall money is a lot of that is away from PayPal, just seeing that drop closer to zero makes me take more action. So for some people it's different from others, but if you create a mock scenario where you experience that feeling before it's actually the real deal, before your whole net worth is a few dollars left, that's something that can help you take a lot more action.
Yeah, I love that approach.
Thank you. And that's just one of the things that I do for the money side of things. But regardless of whether you mock the situation or not, it does feel like a challenge when it happens. And with challenges at the forefront, I'm wondering if you could share with us one big challenge you faced in your journey and a powerful lesson you learned during that challenge.
Well, I mean, I'll answer more specifically in a second, but I mean, I think for anybody that's trying to, achieve extraordinary things or become an entrepreneur, your challenges are frequent and never ending. And in fact, similar to failures, you have to have the mindset that almost like failure isn't even a word. It doesn't even compute. There's no win or lose. It's win or learn. And that is, again, for people who are having a fear, when I ended my very first business, I at that time, I had people coming up to me acting like it was the end of the world. Oh, hey, I heard you shut your business down. Oh, I'm really sorry. Or, oh, wow, all your friends went off and they're halfway to being lawyers now and doctors. It must be really hard that you just wasted, so much of your life, at the ripe old age of 23 or something. People come at you as though it's a horrible thing. And man, when I said I was going to do another company, they're like, didn't you already try that once? Don't you remember what happened the last time? Aren't you still broke from the last one? So people will often view failure as you're one and done. You are not that event, and it's not one or done. It's just experimentation. And so, my biggest challenge was probably going out of business and going into credit card debt on that very first company. But I never thought that, I was going to succeed or die. And that probably wasn't healthy. I was doing it for the wrong reason for the first 10 years of my life. It was running from the one-armed man. That was a negative reason, but it was a powerful reason. And so I had no choice but to keep doing it until I succeeded. But I think that, even when I was older, I mean, I was in big companies, that were, I was a senior, one of the senior partners of a company. We were doing, I don't know, $35 to $50 million a year. And I mean, we were 2 weeks away from not being able to make payroll. I mean, the feelings and the challenge you have of like, there's hundreds of people that are going to get laid off and not get paid in 2 weeks unless we solve this problem is huge. But you routinely are going to be facing these kinds of issues no matter what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do something huge, you want to run a marathon, you're going to, pull a muscle, you're going to get injured, you're going to have bad days, bad races. I mean, you just have to realize that's not the end. You are not that event. And it's kind of like, you just got to remember to work the problem, Oh, I went out of business. Okay, well, I just discovered one way not to make $1 million. Let me try another way. And you just kind of keep at it like that.
And I like how you mentioned how things weren't going good for you initially when you focused on the negative, trying to escape that one-armed guy and the debt. And if you have a negative viewpoint, that's going to negatively affect the amount of success that you achieve. And I'd like to go back to something else Kevin said, where Kevin mentioned where like your first business went out of business. Like, why would you start this one? You remember what happened last time. There are a lot of stories of people who they mess up big time the first time around, but then they get better the other time. And people know I'm a big Red Sox fan, but I'll give credit to Aaron Judge because he had a really bad 2016. Like, I think his average was 178, and then he became one of the dominant hitters in baseball the following year. So just because things don't go very well for you the first time doesn't mean they can't go well for you the second time if you approach it differently. And if someone says like, oh, the first time was bad, why are you going to even attempt it? Those are people you just have to tune out.
Hey, Mark, how the heck can you be a Red Sox fan living in New York City?
Things happen. Things happen. Yeah, it's an interesting lifestyle. I mean, that could be like, I could expand on that sometime, but it does come with its fun and challenges. Now, I'm one of the things I know that we've been talking about a little bit is your books, and you also mentioned The One Thing. That is also a book that I have read, and one of the things I like to ask people, because this, I believe, like, if you acquire knowledge and you continue to do that through podcasts and books and any other way of acquiring knowledge, you're going to be at the top of your game really fast. So with that in mind, Kevin, I'm wondering if you could share with us 3 great books that you believe will have a positive impact on us.
Yeah, I'm a huge reader. I think you can just get so much out of other people's wisdom. I think the book Meditations, Marcus Aurelius. It's about a philosophy of Stoicism, and that will serve you well in life, and especially if you have any entrepreneurial ambitions. For me, in terms of kind of the area of leadership, kind of an easy read, very accessible, is a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith, talking about kind of leading others. And in terms of entrepreneurship, there's a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine from Chet Holmes, and Chet passed away a few years ago, but absolutely incredible, underrated, underread book that completely transformed the way I sell and market. I mean, for the last 25 years. I mean, I talk about some of the things, Mark, about why my first businesses didn't succeed, but why some of my later ones grew so quickly. It's all about what I learned in The Ultimate Sales Machine.
Kevin, thank you for sharing with us those great book recommendations. And for anyone who is interested in a book that can help them create, promote, and optimize their content for growth and revenue, you can grab my book, Content Marketing Secrets, over at markgabberty.com/book. And before we wrap up this episode, Kevin, I've asked you a lot of questions throughout our time together, but what do you believe is one question that we need to be asking ourselves more often?
It comes down to, who do you want to serve? I think in our life, and especially when starting our businesses, we think about, oh, should I be doing, real estate or Bitcoin or an online store or whatever it is. We think about how are we going to make money? What's the thing? But the best way to succeed is to think about, who do you want to serve? Do you want to serve? And because it's all about understanding that audience, who they are, what they want. If it's a small enough audience, get to know them personally so that they know, like, and trust you. If it's a giant audience, you understand them as a group. And the way you grow your business isn't by finding new audiences, it's by finding different things to sell to the same audience. So a primary question is, who do you want to help? Who do you want to serve?
Kevin, I absolutely love that question. And I'm very grateful for you sharing that question, all of your great insights throughout our time together. And if you want to keep in tabs with Kevin, see what he's up to, there are a few ways to do that. You can get his best-selling book, 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management. Again, all this will be in the show notes, markberry.com/E196. You can also check out Kevin's LeadX Leadership podcast. And finally, something to definitely keep in the back of your mind, leadx.org. They're going to be pretty soon releasing the world's first executive coach powered by IBM Watson, which there's going to be a lot of awesome details about that. So just something to keep in mind. All those links will be in the show notes. But Kevin, I can't thank you enough for sharing all of your great insights with us. It was such a pleasure to have you on Breakthrough Success.
A lot of fun. Thanks, Mark.
How does over 100 retweets per day sound to you? My free ebook, 27 Ways to Get More Retweets on Twitter, has you covered. I use the methods within this ebook to get over 10,000 retweets every single quarter. To learn